Hello everyone, this is Matthew John. The topic of today's video is the 3 simultaneous ascension processes and how to master all of them. So there are 3 processes that are going on at once during this ascension process, and everyone who is on the path is going through all 3 of these processes. Process number 1 is we are going through a journey of emotional and karmic transmutation. Number 2, we are going through a process of physical transformation. And number 3, we are on a journey from ego consciousness to soul consciousness. And all 3 of these are happening at once, and everyone who's on the path is at a different point in the journey of each of those 3 processes. And I'm going to go in depth into all 3 of them right now. So the first process is a journey of emotional and karmic transmutation. All emotional and karmic density that you've accumulated as a soul incarnated into different vessels in different timelines and different worlds, all of that needs to be transmuted completely during this lifetime. And the way that you can practically recognize, so what is that? I mean, that, it sounds like a lot of spiritual vocabulary, but what does it actually mean? Well, it's the emotional residue that lies within you. So it's when you watch a movie and all of a sudden something triggers you to just burst out into tears. That's some emotional residue being accessed. So when you have a breakup, and you have, you go through some grief and some sadness, that breakup was there to trigger that emotional and karmic residue, or another word for it is cellular trauma or cellular baggage, karmic baggage. You might have heard all these terms. They're pointing to the same thing. It's that energy from past lives and from earlier in this lifetime that you still carry with you. And then when you feel the emotion, that's how it is released. That is how it moves through. So whatever you're feeling, you're healing. And you might have heard that before, and you might have just kind of glossed over, like, all right, whatever. No, it's really true. Whatever you're feeling, you're healing. So whenever you're feeling any of the negative emotions, sadness, grief, jealousy, anger, rage, anything like that, this is because that's exactly what's being healed in your field. So it's never, you're not ever doing anything wrong. You're definitely not. Some people have the illusion that if they are feeling negative emotions, if they're not feeling happy or joyful all the time, and yet I've read a million spiritual books, I've watched a million videos like you, Matt, and all these other people on YouTube, and I'm a Reiki master and all this, but I still get pissed off, angry, I still get jealous, I still get sad, I still have grief. Well, that's all good. None of that is an indication that you're not on the path. Those are all indications actually that you are on the path. Because all of that, whenever you're feeling any of that, it is being healed. It is moving through your field. If you're not feeling that, it either means that it's not the time, or that it's just not there, that you've already moved through it, which is great. When the time comes, it'll be there. The universe is always there to give us exactly what we need in order for these emotions to move through, in order for the energy to move through, in order for that karmic baggage, that cellular memories, that cellular trauma to move through. So it's like you might have a certain, the reason it's called density, because literally energetically it's dense. So when there's areas of density in your body and in your energetic body, and sometimes, when there's density in the energetic body, can also manifest as density in the physical body that can sometimes, not always, lead to some sort of illness. Not always, okay? I know, if you read Louise Hay, or there's a bunch of books about, how physical diseases have an emotional component to them. And there is truth to that, but it's not 100%. It's absolutely not 100%. Just because you have a physical issue, it doesn't mean that by getting to the emotional, there are physical issues. There are, viruses, latent viruses and bacteria, and there's all kinds of things that our bodies are very complex machines that they can go through. But it is possible that there is an emotional component to all that. So when you have those areas of energetic density, and then the emotion moves through, boom, it releases out of your field. And this is why, for example, if you cry, you'll notice that after you cry, you pretty much always feel better, don't you? You feel lighter, you feel relieved, right? Well, that's because you're feeling the result of that energy moving through. So all of it has to be transmuted along this ascension journey, all of it. And a lot of it, maybe even most of it, isn't even yours. And I know that sounds kind of cruel in a way. It's like, why am I here to feel this energy and feel this density and heal this stuff that's not even mine? Well, it's because you're the one who can. And, you might be asking yourself, well, if it's not mine, then whose is it? Well, it comes from your ancestors. Your ancestors 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations ago, they didn't have the spiritual tools to move through this stuff. And you do. So through procreation, the DNA gets passed down, and in that DNA also contains these memories. So you are helping to heal stuff from your ancestors from generations ago. And of course, because time is not actually linear, it is linear in a way. We experience it as linear, but it's also simultaneous. It's also quantum. So you're also healing your ancestors. You're healing their trauma. You're healing their patterns of lack of love towards self or other or world or God. You're healing their disconnection from source as well. And that's all by design. So, instead of feeling like overwhelmed by it, you can feel proud of it. It's like, hey, as a soul, I've come so far on this journey that now in this lifetime, I'm here not only healing myself, I'm healing my ancestors. And on top of that, you're healing the planet. You're doing the healing work on yourself, which is also helping the planet to overcome its density. The collective consciousness of humanity is overcoming its density. So every time you are feeling those emotions and you allow them to move through and you move it out of your field, you're also moving a piece of that emotional and karmic density from the planet and from the collective of humanity. And, you may have heard me talk about how this is service work, right? The highest vibration of 5D is not joy, it's actually service. It goes above. Service. Unconditional service. And service, it might not feel good in the moment, but when you realize what you're doing, it feels great. You're a servant of God, serving the ascension process on this planet. So congratulations, because you're all doing a wonderful job at it. Okay? So how do we master this part of the journey? Well, there is a certain... You can think of it in a mathematical sense. If there's a certain number that's associated with all the negative emotions, right? And the higher that number is, the higher that it lies somewhere inside you, that there's a pocket of that. So let's say, you might have, and I'm just making this up, grief is 800 and rage is 450. And all of it has to be moved through until you get down to zero. And you won't really know how much is left. If you stop feeling a certain emotion very often, it's probably a sign that you've kind of gotten to the bottom of the barrel. It could also be a sign that you're not being willing to feel your emotions. So it can be one or the other. You know, for example, if you're using some sort of substance like marijuana or alcohol to really kind of sedate yourself, then it's suppressing those emotions and you're not going to feel them, and that number is just going to stay the same. But if you're doing your spiritual work and you know you've been through 3 dark nights of the soul and you've been to a million seminars, and you're good at letting yourself cry when you need to, you've learned how to feel anger without expressing it outward at the world or at someone else, then those numbers are going to go down until they get to nothing. And that's when we're, you know, there really is no completion point to this ascension journey, but that feels like it's a point where you're in a good place. You know, you're a really ascended being. I'm not there yet. I don't know anyone who is there yet. I don't know if there's anyone on the planet who's there totally yet. There might be. I'm not sure. So how do you master this? Well, by being willing to feel your emotions whenever they come up. If it's sadness or grief, to be willing to cry, you know, especially if you're a man and you've been raised in Western culture and crying is, you know, supposedly a sign of weakness. It's not. It's a sign of strength. It's a sign of courage, because you're having the courage to allow that emotion to move through. So learning to cry, even going so far as an exercise that I do once in a while, if I just kind of feel like I'm going through some stuff emotionally and I just kind of need to cry and it's just not really coming out, I will actually make myself cry. And I will do it I have a couple of songs that just make me bawl, right? And I'll put those on and it'll help me to cry. It always works. And then I always feel better after because I move some energy through. Anger, when anger arises, to be willing to be with anger and to be okay with being angry. It's okay to be angry. It's human to be angry. When you express it at another person or an animal or outwardly where it's affecting someone else, the anger doesn't move through. It doesn't. It actually just stays the same, that number inside you, so to speak. When you feel the anger and you just feel it inside you, close your eyes, breathe with it, be with it, then it's moving out of your field. And you might actually feel it disappear, just like that, gone. Because you finally felt it. You know, we're conditioned, especially in Western culture, to, well, anger is a thing that either you're not supposed to express or that that you can express on someone else and it's supposedly, you know, it goes away. But that's not how it works. Yes, Teresa, breathe with it, be with it. Exactly. Thank you. It's not how it works. When you express it outwardly, it builds more karma. When you feel it inwardly, like Teresa said, breathe with it, be with it, it transmutes it, and it leaves your field. Another thing that you can do is any sort of healing work, either on yourself or by going to a healer, you know, doing a private session with me, any of your favorite healers. Anytime you're doing any spiritual work with the intention, you're intending to actually go in there and feel this stuff and let it move through you, boom, it'll do it. It'll move. You know, and any body work, massage, acupuncture, Reiki, like I said, you know, Rolfing, any of that, it helps the energy to move. And it helps the physical and the energetic aspects of that density to move through you. And you're saving yourself a lot of trouble when you are regularly going for healing work, whether it be body work, whether it be intuitive healing coaching like I offer, both of those. You're saving yourself a lot of future trouble, because then you're intentionally moving this stuff through, And the universe then doesn't have to bring you some sort of adversity to force you to feel the emotions. So when you're doing it intentionally, you're making it a lot easier on yourself. And all of it has value. There's a million different healing avenues out there, both body work and both, spiritual and both coaching. There's a million different avenues, and they're all great. They're all really great. And you can take a couple and kind of, if you have something that you do weekly, like go to acupuncture weekly, go for a massage weekly, go for some sort of spiritual or coaching thing once a month, something like that, you're really doing yourself a big favor. It's just making it a lot easier for you down the line. You're kind of circumventing whatever the universe might need to bring you if you weren't willing to intentionally just do the work on your own. And the universe still might bring you stuff. It will happen, but you're probably saving yourself a lot of stuff that doesn't need to be brought to you. If that makes sense. Process number two, Ascension is a process of physical transformation. So you may have become aware of something called Ascension symptoms, right? Anyone get them? Raise your hand, right? They're real. They're real, and it's because the body is going through a very difficult process, and it's easier, and it's the difficulty depends on your body, and it has nothing to do with like you and like, oh, if your body is going through more symptoms than your friend, that you're doing something wrong. It's not. It also doesn't mean you're doing anything necessarily right. It's just your body is different. I've had a very difficult physical ascension process, and it continues. Every day I go through a lot physically, and it's just because my body has a lot of physical stuff to move through, and it just is what it is. And I've met a lot of people who are really the opposite, and I can tell that they're at a very high level on the process, but they just haven't gone through a whole lot of physical issues. And there's no right or wrong. It just is what it is. Everyone's body is different. So don't blame yourself if you are having a lot of ascension symptoms. And if you're not, don't think that, that you're not in the ascension process, because it's just not true. It's just that everyone's body is very different. Because what needs to happen for us to move from these three-dimensional carbon-based beings that we've been for the entire history of this planet to a brand new human race, the Homo Luminous, the Homo Universalis, the Homo Divinus, the fifth dimensional human being, is every cell of our body needs to go through a rebirthing process. On a macro scale, every organ of our body needs to go through a rebirthing process. And so you can imagine, birthing pains. It's the birthing pains of every one of your cells. So when you go through an extended period of, let's say it's an autoimmune diagnosis, let's say it's just an unexplainable, fatigue or lots of headaches or any neurological issues or anything like that, and I've been through a lot of it, so I get it. It really, from an energetic standpoint, it can be because your body really needs to be in a period of incubation. And during a period of incubation, you are much more able to assimilate the ascension energies, and your cells are able to repair, not repair, to be reborn, and it really just depends on everyone's body is different. So, how can you master this? Well, like I said before, going for healing work, especially body work, okay, things like acupuncture, chiropractic, network chiropractic, which is an energetic form of chiro, which is amazing, Reiki, any other types of energy work, massage is amazing, okay, any type of body work really helps your body, and it helps your body really ground the ascension energies. Water, drinking a ton of water, more water than you think you need. Just keep drinking water. Really stay hydrated. You can add some lemon to your water. You can add some Himalayan pink salt to your water. These really help. Um, exercise. Exercise is very important, okay? You're being reborn into a new body. You need to move the body. You need to move it. Yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, just walking in nature, swimming, anything. And getting in touch with nature is to really make spending time in nature a necessity, you know? Not just something that, oh, you know, let me do this once every month or so. No, a necessity, like once a week or more. Go to the woods or go to the beach or go to a river or just spend time with your feet. You know, if it's warm enough, take your sandals off, take your socks off, just feet on the earth, and to really, because when you're doing that, you're allowing that energy to ground through your body into the earth. And on an energetic level, we are here as not only beacons of light, but we're also here as like energetic radio towers. So we're all these like light worker radio towers, and all of this energy that's coming in, you know, when you hear about the geomagnetic storms or the solar storms, you know, if you're watching this within the first couple days after I recorded it, we're supposed to supposedly get a solar wind around the 7th or the 8th of September, right? So anytime this stuff happens, it means that a remarkable increase of light is flowing into the planet, and this light is bringing those cellular changes, those DNA upgrades, and that's why you can feel, especially when during the geostorms or during the solar wind or during the solar flares, you can feel extra ungrounded, frazzled. You can have more symptoms than you might normally have. So those are the times, especially when it's important to go to the woods, and you know, if you can take your shoes off, ground into the earth, because then you're being that antenna. There's nothing on your feet. There's no plastic or rubber blocking, you know, that energy from moving through. It's just moving down through your crown into the ground. You're grounding it into the grid. We're here as those light worker light towers. You know, and that's almost, now that I talk about this, that could almost be a fourth simultaneous ascension process, is that we're acting as light towers to ground this light into the grid. So make it 4. And then we'll talk about the last one. Is it's a process of moving from ego consciousness to soul consciousness. So as children, we grow up in 3D households, most of us, and we're just, you know, born into this world, into kind of the matrix, so to speak, right? And at a certain point in our journey, something happens that starts to wake us up, and we start to see things differently, and it's like the Matrix when Neo took the red or the blue or the whatever color, right? I don't remember. I'm sure you do. So, and nothing's ever the same. Well, being awake doesn't mean that you're out of ego. And actually, being awake, I'm sure you might know someone who's like this, maybe not. Being awake can actually mean you're even more in ego than someone who's totally asleep. And that happens a lot. So this is another part of the process that has to be mastered, is the complete transition from ego consciousness to soul consciousness. You know, as children, we're completely in ego consciousness. As teenagers, and that's by design, you know, living the first parts of our life in complete ego consciousness. That's how we learn, you know, how to be a human being. We learn how to use these bodies, and we learn how to interact with others. And that's also where we accumulate a lot of that density, a lot of that karmic and cellular density, which actually has parallels to past lives, and on a quantum level, it's all happening at once. But that's why early in life, we experience a lot of things that we later have to heal, right? And a lot of it isn't, most of it isn't our fault. It's just, you know, things that we might have been victimized, you know, abandoned, might have had a nasty breakup in grade school or high school, and these things just happen, and then later they have to be felt and healed. That's by design. But at a certain point, we might start to be attracted to certain information or certain books or certain YouTube videos that talk about moving out of ego, right? And so what does it really mean to move out of ego? Well, you know that there's ego structures left. It's like when you're completely in ego, which most of the world is completely lost in ego, and they wouldn't know how to get out. You could hand them a book, from Eckhart Tolle, and it wouldn't do anything to them, right? They might say, "Oh, this is nice," and they put it away. They've built up. It's like a fortress around them, an energetic fortress, and there's these layers and layers and layers and layers of walls, and all these layers represent things to defend. Things to defend. Defend my religion. Defend my favorite sports team. Defend my favorite political party. Defend my veganism, right? Or my non-veganism. Defend the flat earth theory. Defend the earth is round theory. Defend my spiritual teacher is better than yours. My guru is better than yours. Defend my country, right? Anything you have to defend, anything that triggers you to go into a defensive reaction, that's showing you where there are still ego structures. And it's okay. It's okay. I probably have some that I'm not even aware of. I think I'm doing pretty well in this area, but there's probably some that I am not aware of, or that I haven't really been willing to become aware of. That's probably there for me. So, what kinds of things trigger you to want to defend? If someone, this is an example that everyone uses, but it's a great example because it's so relatable. When you're driving, if someone does something, kind of rude on the road, or even like happened to me yesterday, which happens often to me. It's funny, I'm just driving and I'm following the rules of the road of New York State, and someone doesn't know the rules of the road, and I'm doing everything right, and, I get honked at, or I get, yelled at, or whatever. It happens. But I don't have anything to defend, so I just say, okay, fine, whatever. I really don't care. If I had something to defend, then I might honk back at them. I might yell back at them. Might use one of the fingers of my hand to relate some message. But I have nothing to defend. It's not that big of a deal. If someone honks at me in traffic because they think I'm doing something that's not of the right of way rules of New York State, when I actually am, then there's nothing that, see, the ego only reacts when it feels like it can lose something. It has something to lose. So you only actually get triggered by anyone or anything when you feel like there's something that can be taken away from you. But is there actually anything real that can be taken away? If someone were to insult you, and I hope that doesn't happen because it doesn't feel good, but if someone were to insult you, if you're completely in ego consciousness, you will insult them back. If you're kind of on this journey, you might insult them back, but in a spiritual way, or you might give them a spiritual lecture, right? Like, that's not very spiritual of you, and you shouldn't do that. But you're still feeling triggered, and you're still feeling the need to respond, to defend something. If you're farther along, you might just let it go. Or if you're really far along, you might let it go and let them know with a firm statement that I do not tolerate someone speaking to me like that. You can block them on social media, whatever. I mean, that's a boundary, and a boundary is a very high vibrational thing. But you don't feel the need to fire any negativity back at them. Setting a boundary is not setting any negativity. It's actually, it's a very positive thing. You're saying, I do not tolerate this. And whether you need to block, whether it's in a social situation, you just need to walk away. Okay? Or it could just be that it's a friend and someone says something that is borderline insulting, or they use a word that you don't like, and you have such not a need to defend anything that you don't even care, that it doesn't cause any reaction within you, because you're not taking it personally, because you can't take it personally because there's nothing there to defend. There's nothing left to defend. And life will do what it needs to break down with a rock those ego fortresses that have been built up. It's like God or the universe will just chisel away, and just with a rock, until those walls crack. And what happens in real life is, something will happen. Something will happen, and you'll see things differently. You'll see things differently, and you'll just, one day, something that triggered you the day before, you don't care anymore. And it doesn't bother you at all. And on another level, if we can realize that everyone is only doing the best they can all the time, if they could do better, they would do better. If they could do better, they would do better. But they can't. Everyone only has the array of choices that match the vibrational frequency that they're at. And if someone is not in a moment at a very high vibrational frequency, they won't have an array of choices that are very high vibrational. But you, as a spiritual initiate, you do have a higher range of choices. You have the choice to respond in any moment with love, or by just nothing. To respond with nothing can often be a very high vibrational response. In general, the more conflict you have in your life, that's a sign that there's a lot of ego structures still there. In general, as those ego structures dissolve, you will have less conflict. And you'll also have less inner conflict. You'll become more clearer in your inner world. You'll be less inclined to insult yourself, to demean yourself, to speak badly about yourself. You won't tolerate any thoughts that are going on that are not very high vibrational thoughts. They'll happen, and you'll say, you know what, I'm not listening to this. This is bullshit. And just change the channel. Change the channel. One of my clients said that. Might have even been Becky, I forget. But someone said, change the channel. I was like, yeah, I like that. Just change the channel. Change the channel from bullshit to truth. It's like, okay, I don't have to believe those thoughts if they're demeaning. When we talk about boundaries, when you set boundaries with other people, you also begin to set boundaries with yourself, where you don't tolerate anything less than the utmost respect from yourself towards yourself. And that includes thoughts, because thoughts aren't always yours. And actually, most of the time, they're not even yours. They're just thoughts that are coming from the field. They're coming from, you're absorbing them from other people. You might absorb them from the television, from the radio, from the internet, Facebook, but they're not actually your thoughts. And if so, they're not thoughts that are of the utmost respect. If they're demeaning, they're not your thoughts. Change the channel. Focus on something else. Right? So, the four ascension, I made this four, right? The four simultaneous ascension processes. We are going through a process of transmutation, of karma, all emotional baggage, all that cellular trauma, all of it has to be transmuted. All emotions have to be felt to completion. All of that has to be completed. It is a physical process. Every cell, every organ must be reborn. Your DNA must be, the additional DNA strands must come online. So we are becoming an actual physical crystalline human being. Number 3 is that we are acting as radio antennas, as light worker antennas to ground that into the grid, ground the energy from the sun, ground the energy into the grid. And that's happening all the time. And not only that, we're also we're transmitting light codes out. And we're not only doing that in our waking life, we're doing it in our sleep. We're always transmitting out these light codes to other people. and it's really an amazing thing. And the last one is that it's a journey from ego consciousness to soul consciousness. All of the ego structures must be broken down till there's nothing left to defend, and you're just embodying the light of your soul. Okay? So, thank you for watching. Please check out my website, youareadivinehuman.org. I am looking for new people to sign up for my spiritual mentoring program. The first couple of people who have been in the program have really, really gotten a lot out of it, and they've had great things to say. It is a comprehensive transformational package, 4 1-hour plus private sessions, a free intuitive nutrition session where I'm going to read you physically and give you a comprehensive plan to heal whatever needs to be healed in you physically, and to put you in the best place to really become a very healthy physical being moving forward for the rest of your life. And these things, these comprehensive protocols take me sometimes an hour and a half or more. That's how extensive it is. Exercise, diet, supplements, everything. And includes homework in between sessions, and it's a very affordable sliding scale price. You can check out that on my website, and it's the best transformational package that I offer. It's also the best value that I offer. I also offer soul plan readings where I look at your life plan that your soul has laid out for you, and how your different experiences, past, present, and future, play into your soul lessons, what you're meant to learn in this lifetime. I also offer intuitive healing coaching sessions where we really go and dig in with the intention of healing whatever of that energy, that density that needs to be healed within you, and to really give you a lot more clarity moving forward. And I also offer starseed coaching sessions where you'll actually take, if you get a full 1-hour session, you'll actually take a guided journey all the way back to your home planet, and you'll bring back gifts from your home planet, and you'll become very clear on your star-seeded mission. You'll come back with a very clear idea of what your star-seeded mission is, what you're meant to anchor and manifest on this planet. And I also offer those intuitive nutrition readings just alone. And if you're going through anything physically and you want my help, we really would recommend that. So check that out. And until next time, thank you for watching. I am Matthew John.